With Daniel at one of his restaurants with Ash'Kara. So I want you to talk a little bit about that as well. He's a chef partner, and so he's got he's got River and Woods in Boulder and an Ash'Kara in Boulder, and he has one in Denver as well. And then Marie Molde, as you know, she is a client solution specialist for Datassential. Worked with her many times in the past and will in the future. RJ Harvey, who hopefully will be joining us. I'll keep looking for him to get him on here as well. We have, Jane, who everybody knows, from the past. She's worked with us for so many years, but now she is with Potatoes USA, Jane Foreman. So glad you're with us as well.
We're coming up with different things that can be done with a potato to help operators conceptualize food waste in a different way, right? So you and I had a great conversation about nose to tail utilization when it comes to animal proteins and so forth. Right. And the same can be said about vegetables, right? So if we're using root to tuber or so forth, right? That's the cool conversation. The potato cracklings that we showed you when you were there in our Spud lab.
Controlling food waste is part of every food service operator's job. And today we're going to show you how America's favorite vegetable can do just that. I'm Chef RJ Harvey, Director of Culinary with Potatoes USA. And with me, I've got my good friend, food waste expert, Chef Daniel Asher.
Thanks for having me.
So some of the benefits of utilizing some already cooked potato products on your menu is you already have it in-house. There's very little labor that you have to do to repurpose a wonderful cooked potato item.
There's so many different ways to utilize it and to coax different flavors, different bases, different sauces, different finishing moves, all from one fantastic ingredient.
For example, already cooked mashed potatoes make a wonderful appetizer by forming them into little patties. We're topping those with a little bit of Canadian bacon, a beautifully poached egg, a little hollandaise sauce.
Sometimes I actually refuse to put it on a brunch menu because I know how popular it'll be.
You as a chef are really responsible for decreasing your overhead costs, but also increasing the amount of profits. Ka-ching! Everybody loves a crispy hot baked potato, but when you have leftover baked potatoes, there's not really a lot that you think about of doing with them.
A baked potato, once you wedge it and you have that great surface area of already creamy, beautiful potato on the inside, drop that in the fryer, you've got this awesome crunch on the outside and this creamy, beautiful, delightful potato in the middle.
These are gonna fry up in a matter of minutes and take a fraction of the time that a normal steak fry would take to fry from raw.
We're gonna use it as a base to do a spin on the street food dish elote.
We've got a little bit of grilled corn, cotija cheese, we have some sour cream, mayonnaise, got some smoked paprika for that little smokiness, and then fresh squeezed lime juice.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna take these beautiful steak fries that are nice and crispy, just kind of arrange these in a nice beautiful pattern. Cream corn love all over the top.
Gorgeous, look at that.
Hit it with some fresh cotija cheese all over the top. Some more of that chili lime salt. You're gonna be like, nachos, what? I think scraps get dismissed by chefs because it's the easy thing to do to simply throw it away.
You have someone set up at their station and they're sitting there peeling potatoes for an hour and a half. In most kitchens, that's just going right into the compost bin, right?
We can turn these into a delicious bar snack by simply tossing them with a little bit of olive oil, a little salt and pepper, something salty that's crispy and delicious. That's also gonna help up your bar sales too.
And if you're running a culinary operation where you're having the mindset towards potato skins be so elevated, how is that impacting the rest of your equation from the front door to the back?
One of the things we don't often think about are how food scraps are unintended in our kitchens. Take a bag of tater barrels or tater drums, for example. Your cook takes those to the fry station, they leave them there for 2 to 3 hours, however long service is. By the time your service is done, you're left with items that are already slack thawed, that are going to not be optimal quality. We can repurpose that by simply taking those scraps of those tater drums or tater barrels, crumbling them, baking those in the oven until they get nice and crispy, and seasoning them with something wonderful like a chorizo spice.
Mocking that texture of a chorizo, adding vinegar powder, roasted chilies, garlic, onions, wonderful flavor profiles to turn those little crumbled bits into addictive, craveable bites.
That chorizo spice tater drum can then be topped on a myriad of different things. That's the reason why chefs even exist in the first place. It's to repurpose different parts of food into something that is delicious and extraordinary, using our talents to the fullest extent.
Why do we approach expensive proteins using this theory of nose to tail utilization? Why don't we look at a potato as top to root utilization? something that we have the power to do every day.
So for more great recipes like this and other ways to control your food costs and reduce food waste, visit spudsforchefs.com.
So, Marie, I'm really excited about what you're here to talk about, beyond the fact of food waste. I know is some that you're going to cover here as well, but also sustainability, food costs, and also, climate change, which is kind of an interesting, topic these days. I think Daniel mentioned it earlier. It's like, it's one of those dangerous conversations at the table at dinner, right? But anxious to hear what you have to say about all this. So you're on, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. And yes, I'm so thrilled to be here. I love being part of ICCA and GCIA events. And it is true, climate change is not the probably most fun dinner table conversation, but in the content for today, we're going to talk about sustainability in a few different lenses, climate change being one of them. Also, how consumer values, some of us highly value sustainability and planetary health and the environment and things like that, and how holding those values is really increasing the importance of sustainability in the food world. So a lot of what we've talked about already is echoed here, and let's continue the conversation. So teeing off with some macro trends. So thinking about sustainability in a broad sense, we think it's really important to kind of ground this conversation, knowing that values and the personal values that we hold as individuals are really making an impact on what we decide to consume. So according to our latest research, 3/4 of consumers say that the values that they hold are a huge part of your identity, whether that's religion, or it could be sustainability, or it could be something to do with your social circle, or whatever it may be. Your values really make up who you are as an individual. And to build on that, 71% of consumers say that their personal values influence the food choices that they make and what they decide to consume. So you may have heard this from Datassential before, and that's that a few of us, or a lot of us, most of us maybe grew up hearing this phrase, you are what you eat. But we think today that paradigm has really shifted, and it's fair to say and accurate to say that we eat what we are, and the food choices that we make reflect the values that we hold. And another recent study we've conducted, we wanted to understand from consumers, so from the number of public and social issues that are at play and important and relevant in our lives today, do you think that food brands and restaurant operators should be taking a stand on these public issues? So what do consumers think about that? And we found that the majority of consumers, and especially younger consumers, say that they want to see food brands like those of us on the Zoom together today to take a stand on issues that are important to consumers. And you can see in this chart that that's especially true when it comes to younger consumers. So today's Gen Z consumers really want to see restaurants taking a stand and really making efforts toward issues that are important to consumers. And we'll see in a second that sustainability and climate change is something that is really important to younger consumers. So here's that list that we posed in this survey. Which of these issues should food brands take a stand on? Hunger and food insecurity is the #1 issue. And I think we could certainly argue that this discussion we're having about food waste is really, in a lot of ways, an answer to that. But then you can see down the list, #5 is climate change. And that's something that 33% of Gen Z consumers, or around a third of consumers overall, want to see food brands take a stand on. So we at Datassential really believe that climate change, again, it's probably not the most comfortable conversation to have at dinner with your friends or even family, but it is something that is going to increase in importance and really expand in the coming years. And there's really a huge conversation happening about how eating sustainably is our best approach or tactic to combat climate change. So headlines like this one happens to be about McDonald's targeting net zero emissions in the next 30-ish years, but certainly a lot more headlines where this one comes from. And I think this data is really powerful. So here we're asking consumers, so it's not easy for all of us to always make a difference with something like climate change or sustainability in a lot of ways. Like maybe it's not easy for us to change to quit using all plastics or drive an electric car instead of a gasoline car, even though we probably all wish we could do that with gas prices today. But consumers generally agree. So the majority of us believe that we can mitigate climate change. We can make a difference for the health of our planet by eating differently and with the food choices that we're making. And to build on that, consumers know that we as individuals can make an impact, but we also think that food brands like those of us on this call together today actually bear more responsibility for addressing climate change than individuals do. There's a cool concept in DC that's really sustainability oriented. They have 8 locations. 90% of their trash is diverted from landfills. They don't use any plastics. Here's an example of a zero waste vodka. So I believe this is only in Colorado, but it's kind of the idea of like the milkman of old, where you bring a milk jug and you give it and it gets refilled. That happens here, but with liters of vodka. This is a really cool app to fight food waste. This started in Europe. So you can sign on to this app and you can pay a fee. Usually it's less than $5 and you get a surprise bag of unsold food from restaurants that partner with this app. So they just are trying to use up all their food. So this app is called Too Good to Go. This loop packaging service has been around for a while. It's again the idea of reusable packaging. And then ending things here with packaging, we just continue to find in our research that we talk a lot about food, but it's really important to think about sustainable packaging too. Over a third of consumers say that the type of packaging material used with food is important to them. A lot of people are concerned about sustainability of packaging. And if sustainable packaging is available, most consumers will choose it. And a lot of consumers report already being drawn to sustainable packaging. So a lot of conversation about food and food waste, but we should also remember to be talking about packaging as well, because that's something that's also important to consumers. It's also really clear with a lot of the companies in the plant-based space that they are not in that space to provide healthy options. They're actually in the space to provide climate saving options. You can really kind of go on the website of a lot of these companies in the plant-based space, and they're like, we're here to save the planet and be a sustainable choice. And here's the water we're saving compared to traditional animal products and things like that. So we know that consumers actually, there's a bit of a disconnect because consumers choose plant-based because they think it's healthier, but that's not always the case, and companies are more so going after a sustainability message. That's not true for everyone, but that can be said as something we should be thinking about.
You know, restaurants have become more important than ever to be a place for community to gather and feel safe and feel loved. And we have a tremendous opportunity to use that voice for maintaining the status quo or demonstrating some level of change. And you can demand change in very subtle ways. You can demand change in very loud ways. So obviously do what makes sense for your operation and where you're at. But I think it's never been a more crucial time as food service professionals to use our voices and to bring up important elements of our society that might not make a lot of sense anymore, and things that we want to demonstrate that we want to do differently. And I think that's a very important resource and tool that we have as mentorship and being in a place of stewardship of the land around us.
you.